Welcome to the Painting Coach, and in this video I'm very excited to show you how to paint one of the brand new Emperor's Children Space Marines. I'll be using the Lord Exultant model, but you can use all the techniques on this model on the rest of the new box set as well. A huge thank you to Games Workshop for sending me the box out early. There are a huge array of models in here, so let's not waste any more time, let's get painting. Now with all the different colours, I wasn't really sure how to prime the model, so I ended up just going with a Chaos Black spray, and I give it a quick coat of Abaddon Black as well, very thin down. Also worth saying, I've not glued the cloak on, because that's just going to make it a lot easier. And the first thing I want to do is base all of the pink. So the colour I'm going to use for this is Screamer Pink. Now I'm going to paint most of the cloak with this. I'm going to paint all of the armour panels that I want to be pink. And obviously that cloak extends across the shoulder and down the front into sort of like a loincloth for the Marine as well. So I'm going to paint all of that with Screamer Pink. Now it will take 2 to 3 thin coats to get a nice even coverage, but this is going to be the basis of all the pinky colours that we've got on the model. When that's completely dry, I'm going to take some Dryad Nightshade and use this to shade all of the cloak areas. Now, I'm not worrying about the armor panels. This is purely just on the fabric parts of the model. So I'm going to work my way around and pop this in there, making sure it doesn't pool too heavily in the recesses. Moving on to the gold next. Now, looking at the box art, it doesn't seem like a warm gold. It's quite a cold gold. So I'm going to go for a kind of brassy effect. And I'm going to base all of this using Runelord Brass. Now, there is quite a bit of this on the model, but it is in some fiddly areas, so just be careful around areas such as the chain link going down that loincloth. Obviously, we've got the Slaneshi icon to do, we've got the shoulder pad icon, the hilt of the spear as well. So if you're not sure which parts are going to be gold or brass, just check the box art. Next up, we'll base the silver, and the colour I'm using for this is dark aluminium. Now, there is quite a lot of silver on the model. There's quite a lot of trim on there as well, which makes me wonder maybe I should have primed it in silver. I'm not sure. The army painting will be a different thing, but essentially we're looking to do all the armour trim, parts of the backpack, the spear and the whip as well. So just take your time with this, especially, like I said, around the areas you've already kind of got based pink. We are going to go back over them later, but it just saves time. To shade all of the silver and all of the brassy gold, I'm going to use the same colour, and I'm going to use Druchii Violet, or Druchii Violet, not entirely sure how the pronunciation goes. Now, I've thinned this 1-to-1 with contrast medium. As you can see, when I'm first applying it, it's not really showing through. It's very, very thin. So actually, you can go ahead and use this straight out of the pot. But essentially, I'm looking to paint all of the trim and any silver elements, because looking at the box art, they've just kind of got that purple hint to the silver. And I'm going to go all in on that, so I'm not going to worry about null oil. I'm just going to shade everything with the Druchii Violet. Once that's dry, I'm going to base all of the tassels on the back of the cloak, on the spear hilt, and also that fantastic headdress that this Marine's got. And the colour for that is Corax White. Be careful around the silver. I know it is blown out a little bit on the video, but that's just because of how bright the white is. So just take your time and get that based. You will need probably 2 coats. To get that very violent bright green effect, I'm going to go with Striking Scorpion contrast paint and just paint this all over the elements we just based white. So again, take your time around the silver elements, but generally this is a very straightforward step you can't really go wrong with. Just make sure you don't apply too much of the contrast paint, because it will flood and you will get some blotchiness, which we don't want. Once that's completely dry, I wasn't quite happy with how light it was in some areas, so I did want to highlight. So I've taken a 50-50 mix of AK White and Striking Scorpion. It's very important you haven't got much on your brush for this. And you've got a good tip as well. I'm just looking to drag it down some of the sharp edges and paint it on some of the raised elements, just to add a little bit of lightness in there. I think this really does help set off those bright green areas. Next up, we'll highlight all of the brassy gold, and the first colour I'm using for that is Sycorax Bronze. Now, this isn't a hugely brighter colour to the Runelord Brass we use to base the elements, but it does just help give us a nice transition. What we're looking to do is catch the sharp edges, and where possible, leave that Druchii Violet shade in the recesses, so you've always got that hint of purple. To finish up the brassy gold, we'll take some Canoptek Alloy. And again, not too much on your brush and a good tip. And this is where we're really looking to drag it along those sharp edges. And this will just give us a really nice, sharp, fine highlight that gives you some nice brightness on those elements of the model. Obviously, the Slaaneshi icon on the backpack is where you'll see the benefit of this the most. I think it does look really nice and does pop quite nicely. To highlight all of the silver, the colour we're going to use is Chrome from Vallejo Model N. Now, if you haven't got Chrome, you can use something like Runefang Steel or Shining Silver from Two Thin Coats. And essentially what we're looking to do is just drag this along the sharp edges of the model to get a really nice highlight. So we're looking at a lot of the armour trim for this. And this is quite raised, so you should be able to get in there to get a nice sharp highlight. We're looking to do things like the spearhead, we're looking to do the whip, anything we've painted silver, we're looking to just edge highlight with the chrome. Now, if it does go on a little bit thick, and it went on very thick for me on the spear, then I've just gone back in with some dark aluminium and tidied it up a little bit. Next up, we'll highlight the pink element of the cloak and the robe. And the colour I'm going to use for this, we're back to Screamer Pink. So essentially what we're looking to do is leave that Drakenhof Nightshade in the recesses, and we're looking to catch the raised areas with the Screamer Pink. So we've obviously got a lot of elements we have already finished now, so do take your time and make sure you've got a good tip on your brush. And don't forget, we're also going to be highlighting the back of the cloak as well. Now, if we've put Drakenhof Nightshade in there, it may be a little bit messy. This is now where we go and tidy it all up. The next highlight we'll use on the pink cloth is Pink Horror. Funny that. And what we're looking to do here is make a sharper highlight, keeping this inside the Screamer Pink from the last stage. So this should be a little bit sharper and it should help pop a little bit more. So we're only really looking at the creases. Some elements you'll be able to drag the brush to get a nice highlight, but in some places you are just going to have to be careful. The other thing we're going to do with the Pink Horror is we're going to paint all of the pink armor panels with Pink Horror as well. So the entirety of the panel. Now you will need 2 coats of this over the Screamer Pink, but this is really starting to build up the base now for those bright pink panels. The final highlight on the pink cloth, and this is a really sharp highlight, is going to be Emperor's Children. We finally got there, the paint named after the Legion. And this is a very nice bright pink colour. So we want to use this fairly sparingly on the cloth. We just want to make sure it's on the sharpest of those raised folds. The other thing we're going to do, like we do with the Pink Horror, is we're going to paint the entirety of the armor panels that we want to be pink with the Emperor's Children. And this then is going to be the jumping off point, and we should be able to get a nice smooth coat with only 2 layers. So we just progressed our way up, and it's really made it easy to get a nice bright pink. Now we do need to shade that pink a little bit. Now I'm going to use Volupous Pink contrast paint, and I'm going to mix this with contrast medium. So it's 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part contrast paint. And what I'm looking to do here is paint this into the recesses. If it goes on a little bit thick, just clean your brush off and you can suck up any excess that you need to. But generally we're looking to paint this into all the recesses, particularly around where we've got trim, where we've got gauntlets meeting forearms, those kinds of things. Now, don't put too much of this on. Start sparingly. So before you go to the model, tap your brush on a little paper towel. That'll suck up a lot of excess, and that should help you control this shade. To highlight all the pink armor, we're going to take a 50-50 mix of Emperor's Children and AK White. Now, if you haven't got AK White, you can use any bright white like White Scar or Bold Titanium White, whatever you've got. Now, what we're looking to do here is a little bit on our brush, and we're looking to drag this along some sharp edges to get some nice crisp highlights. But generally, looking at the armor on the model, you are going to have to go in and just be very careful and paint in some of these highlights. So it's important you've got a good tip and you haven't got too much paint on your brush. Take your time and work your way around the model. If you do make mistakes, you can always fix them. So that's all the pink done. Let's get onto some of that flayed flesh that this particular model's got on his leg. So I'm going to base all this using Rakarth Flesh. Now, I've already painted the studs with silver. That was a mistake. So I'm going to not worry too much about painting over them, but this does take 2 coats of Rakarth Flesh just to get some nice even coverage. Again, being careful of bits you've already finished. We'll shade that area using Reikland Fleshshade. Now, I've put it on fairly thickly, but I am spreading it out. So rather than letting it settle, I'm using it like I'm a layer paint, like I'm painting it, because what I'm trying to do is just tint that skin rather than give it a wash. When that's dry, we'll go back to Rakarth Flesh and start to build up that layer again, leaving the Reikland Fleshshade in the recesses and just carefully applying this where we think we need it. The final highlight on all of that is with Pallid Witch Flesh. Now, this is a much brighter colour, so if it's too bright for you, maybe mix in some Rakarth Flesh, but generally for this, I'm looking to just do some edge highlighting. So I'm looking to catch some edges just to give a nice bright highlight so it stands out a little bit on the tabletop. Now, there are small amounts of leather on the model as well, so I'm not going to focus on this too much. All I'm going to do is just base it with some Dryad Bark, which is a nice dark desaturated brown. Now, we've got the pistol holster and we've got the belt to do, so get those painted. And then all we're going to do is highlight that with some Gorthor Brown by dragging the brush along those sharp edges, and that just gives us a nice crisp highlight and some nice interest on the model. It's time to paint the other half of the cloak now and get those two colours flowing into each other. So you'll notice I've only painted half of it in the pink colours. Next up, I'm going to take some Naggaroth Night, which is a very nice dark purple, and paint this over the other half of the cloak, not worrying about blending it into the pink layers at the moment. We'll have quite a harsh line, but I just want to get some nice, even layers down. I do need two of this to get that to happen. Next up, we'll take some Xereus Purple and start to build up those big, nice folds that we've got on the cloak. So don't worry about this being a nice, big, chunky highlight. We want that because the Naggaroth Night's the darker colour, and the mid-tone is this Xereus Purple, which I really, really like as a colour. To blend that gap between the two colours, for some reason the video hasn't recorded, but all I've done is take a 50-50 mix of the Naggaroth Night and Screamer Pink. I've thinned it with some water, not too much on my brush, and I've just painted it from the pink areas into the purple areas, focusing on those recesses, and that has helped to blend and smooth that colour quite nicely. So I'm really sorry that I've not recorded that. I'm not sure what's happened there, but it does give you a little bit of a nice transition there. Once that's down, we put a nice crisp, sharp highlight in using some Genestealer Purple. Now, in a lot of places on this cloak, you can just drag the brush and you get a really nice highlight. So just do that where you can. In some places, you're going to have to paint it in. And if you do put it in a bit too thick, you can always go back in and fix it with some Xereus Purple. When adding the Genestealer Purple as well, it's worth highlighting not just the purple areas, but highlighting over some of the pink areas of the cloak as well. And again, this just helps the eye with that transition from the pink into the purple. So I've gone back in on the model with some Abaddon Black and tidied up all of the black elements. It's now time to highlight that, and the colour I'm going to use is Eshin Grey. And what I'm looking to do in most places is just drag the brush along the sharp edges, because this gives me a nice crisp highlight that's easy to control. Where I can't do this on some of the armour panels, I'm just looking to keep the highlight nice and thin. And if I do make any mistakes, I can always go back in with some Abaddon Black to tidy up. To just help that black stand out a little bit more, I'm going to take some Dawnstone, which is a brighter grey, and I'm going to paint this over the Eshin Grey, but keeping it within the boundaries of the Eshin Grey. So this is a nice fine highlight. And again, this just helps the black to stand out. And where I can, I'm dragging my brush because it does just give me a nice crisper highlight and also helps me keep a little bit better control as well. To finish the black armour, I'm just going to dot some grey Seer on the sharpest elements, such as the sharpest parts of the helmet, the mouth vent, and any other kind of elements that really do stand out. We'll base the eyes and the power node on the spear using AK white. Again, any white will do. With the eye sockets, I'm not just looking to paint the eye, I'm looking to paint the entire thing, which is why I've just gone outside the line of that socket, because that's just going to help me give a little bit of a glow effect. To paint the eyes, very simple. Take some striking scorpion contrast paint, not too much on your brush, and just drop it over that white bit. And what you'll see is the recesses will collect more of the paint, so it'll be darker, and the eye lens itself will be a bit brighter. So it's a really easy way of getting a little bit of a false glow. Now, to do the spear power node, I'm going with this Fluorescent Magenta from AK Interactive. And what I'm looking to do is make this a nice bright pink colour like the box art. So all I'm going to do is paint this over the white power node, just taking my time. And I'm going to let that first coat dry and see how I feel about it. Once it's dry, I decided to go back in with a second one just to give me that much brighter pink colour. I'm really, really happy with how that's turned out. So there we have it. This Emperor's Children Lord Exultant is done and ready to command the champions of Slaanesh on the tabletop. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I'm looking forward to painting the rest of the army. I might do an army painting video because I'm going to figure out some shortcuts to kind of get those done and on the tabletop. But if you did like the video, leave a like and a comment down below. There's a link to a full unboxing of this set just here. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.